Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is L24 Midnight News coming to you live from the capital Algiers, and these are tonight's top stories. As President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune concludes his participation in the 78th UN General Assembly, Washington supports Algeria's admission to the Security Council and emphasized the importance of its presence in all international bodies. Aiming to facilitate investment and trade between Algeria and other African countries, Algeria, in collaboration with Senegal, established a new bank in Dakar with a capital of $100. In the grain deal, the cargo ship Resilient Africa arrived off Turkey's Bosphorus Strait on Thursday, the first vessel loaded with grain from Ukraine to sail in and out the Black Sea using a temporary corridor. Azerbaijani presidential representative for special assignments Elshin Amirbayov stated on Thursday that Baku handed over the draft peace agreement to Yerevan and the current negotiations could lead to final peace treaty. Hello again and welcome. First, Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune left New York on Thursday evening, returning to Algeria after participating in the proceedings of the 78th UN General Assembly. According to a statement by the Algerian presidency, the president was bid farewell by the Algerian diplomatic mission in New York. Earlier, Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune has held extensive meetings with leaders and presidents at the headquarters of the United Nations. The Algerian president also met with the president of the UN 78th General Assembly, Denis Francis. Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune also had bilateral talks with his Cuban counterpart Miguel Diaz-Canel at the United Nations headquarters in New York. The Algerian president has a meeting with the Prime Minister of Italy, Giorgia Meloni, according to a statement by the Algerian presidency. President Tebboune also had talks with the South African counterpart Cyril Ramaphosa, and the Algerian president also received the Vice President of the Republic of Uganda, Jessica Rose Alubo. Earlier on Wednesday, also, President Tebboune met at the United Nations headquarters with the head of the Tunisian delegation participating in the work of the General Assembly, Nabil Ammar. Still in the same line of thought, Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune met with his counterpart, President of Guinea-Bissau, Omar Sissoko Embalo, and the President of Liberia, George Weah. The meeting took place at the UN headquarters in New York on the sidelines of the proceedings of the UN 78th General Assembly. The United States affirmed its support for Algeria's accession to the UN Security Council, and in a statement to the L24 News, the regional official spokesman for the US State Department expressed his welcome for Algeria's endeavors and efforts regionally and internationally. More in this report.
Algeria's commitment to peaceful solutions of various crises remains unwavering, and Washington has wholeheartedly endorsed the efficacy of Algeria's approach in crisis resolution. This endorsement comes as Algeria gears up for its next term as a non-permanent member of the Security Council, a tenure that enjoys explicit support from the United States.
We welcome Algeria's participation in the Security Council, but this is not enough. We want to see countries like Algeria participating in all international institutions, in all committees and commissions, because actually this administration believes that the time has come. We were talking about the United Nations reform for years, but this administration believes that it is time to move from words to action.
الوقت اللي نمر من الكلام إلى الفعل.
Algerian diplomacy's remarkable track record in conflict resolutions has earned it the backing of the United States for its UN Security Council membership. Furthermore, the US expresses a willingness to see Algeria actively engage in various international institutions, bodies, and committees.
نحن نرى أن
We see that Algeria and its government play an important role for stability and security in the region, and we must thank the Algerian government, especially for its interest regarding, for example, what happened in Niger, and other than that, the meeting of the Algerian foreign minister with American diplomats, because he discussed in this important meeting all the files and the repercussions of this conflict in Niger.
Diplomats observe that Algerian diplomacy boasts a history of successfully mediating conflicts and crises across Africa and the Arab world. Its commitment to non-interference in the internal affairs of other nations has solidified its expertise in dealing with diverse parties. This expertise dovetails seamlessly with the peaceful doctrine blustered by Algeria's non-permanent seat in the Security Council.
Algeria, as you know, was elected to non-permanent membership in the Security Council for 2024 and 2025. It was also elected to join the Human Rights Council, and therefore, the presence of President Abdelmajid Tebboune in this session is important. He thanked the 184 countries that elected Algeria. Algeria has long experience in international work, in mediation, and in resolving conflicts, and it has distinguished relations based on mutual respect and non-interference in internal affairs, and it advances its mediation.
The US's resolute support for Algeria on the global stage underscores the significance of Algeria's effective diplomatic strategies. This endorsement comes as a crucial juncture as Algeria seeks to leverage its experience to champion peaceful solutions for pressing global concerns.
Now, away from this topic, Venezuelan Minister of Foreign Affairs has reaffirmed his country's strong and unconditional support for the Sahrawi Republic and the legitimate struggle of the Sahrawi people for freedom and independence. This came during a meeting between the Venezuelan official and the Sahrawi Foreign Minister Mohamed Sidati on the sidelines of the 78th regular session of the UN General Assembly in New York, where the two parties discussed ways to strengthen bilateral relations between the Sahrawi Republic and the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, especially in the wake of the state visit made by President Ghali to Caracas last January. Algeria marked a significant achievement by inaugurating the Algerian Senegalese Bank in the capital, Dakar, becoming the second Algerian bank to venture abroad following the launch of the Algerian Union Bank in Nouakchott, Mauritania.
Just hours after unveiling the Algerian Union Bank in Mauritania, Algeria continues its journey of bolstering its economic and geostrategic ties with the African continent, particularly in West Africa. The inauguration of the Algerian Senegalese Bank in Dakar represents a pivotal step towards enhanced collaboration and the consolidation of Algeria's presence in West Africa, streamlining financial transactions for businesses and economic stakeholders.
The launch of the ABS Bank reflects the vision and strategic will of His Excellencies Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, President of the Republic of Algeria, and Macky Sall, President of the Republic of Senegal, and constitutes the fruit of the joint efforts agreed by the Algerian and Senegalese authorities to promote fruitful and mutual beneficial cooperation.
The Algerian Senegalese Bank boasts a social capital of an estimated $100 million, arising from a collaborative efforts involving 4 Algerian public banks. The National Bank of Algeria holds a 40% share of the capital, with the Algerian Popular Credit Bank contributing 20%, in addition to the Foreign Bank of Algeria and the Bank of Agriculture and Rural Development, each holding 20%.
We are happy with the visit of the Algerian delegation, which took the first steps aimed at strengthening trade relations between the two countries, which is establishing this bank and opening a permanent exhibition for Algerian products in Senegal. For your information, there is an upcoming visit by Senegalese investors to Algeria with the aim of consolidating relations and trade exchanges between the two countries.
This latest achievement reaffirms the commitment of Algeria's highest authorities to fostering stronger ties with the African continent and actively participating in its growth. It seeks to provide economic stakeholders with the means to access West African market and bolster Algerian exports, which have seen notable growth in recent times.
Following their meeting, the Algerian Minister of Finance affirmed that this stopover served as the opportunity to access all the accomplishments made by the Algerian delegation during its visit to Mauritania. This includes the inauguration of Algerian Union Bank and the opening of permanent exhibition featuring Algerian products. In response, the Mauritanian Minister of Finance, Isolmo Wild Mohamed Mbadi, recommended the establishment of the Algerian Union Bank in Mauritania and emphasized that this development will bolster trade relations between the two nations and inaugurate the Mauritanian banking sector.
Through this meeting, everything that happened today and the achievements regarding the opening of the Algerian Union Bank was evaluated. We also touch on issues of cooperation and how to enhance this cooperation in the future. What we have achieved today was not an end in itself, but rather a first step on the path to strengthening cooperation. The opening of the Algerian Union Bank will play a role in developing trade relations between the two sisterly countries and will give an impetus to the Mauritanian banking system.
The Algerian airline company Air Algerie has announced the launch of a non-stop flight to Ethiopia from Algiers International Airport twice a week. And it also launched another flight to Cameroon 3 a week. The CEO Yassine Ben Suleiman said during a press conference on Thursday that the first commercial flight to the Ethiopian capital will be on December 15 on this year, while the first flight to the Cameroonian city of Douala will begin on November 30.
في نطاق هذه الرحلة الافتتاحية ستربط شركة الخطوط الجوية الجزائرية.
Within the scope of this inaugural trip, Air Algerie will link Algeria to East Africa or Addis Ababa for the first time, and this in line with making Algiers airport a hub and strengthening relations between the two countries in the commercial sector through transporting passengers and goods and the sector of touristic exchange, as well as different other sectors. We also promote our presence in Western Africa. Today, I declare the launch of ticket sale from the 23rd of September and the launch of flights between Air Algerie and Addis Ababa, and that's every Monday and Friday at 91,000 Algerian dinar, and also Algeria to Douala, Cameroon every Sunday, Monday, Thursday.
It gives me distinct pleasure and an honor to be part of this historic mission of this inaugural flight connecting the two most important capitals in Africa, Algiers and Addis Ababa. In both encounters, what they underscored was the importance of having a connected Africa. Africa would only prevail economically, socially, and politically if it is well connected among itself. And their discussion has borne fruit today that we are witnessing this important flight to Addis Ababa, Africa's capital.
Algerian Minister of Public Works and Basic Infrastructure, along with the Turkish Minister of Transport, presided the Algerian-Turkish Business Forum. During the forum, the Algerian Public Works Minister has said that both countries, Algeria and Turkey, aim to strengthen their cooperation in many fields, among them railways construction.
This business forum was a chance to present the rich and big program in the public works sector and basic infrastructure, in addition to railways construction, which is about to kick off. This is a big program. The Turkish companies, as you know, have a long experience. In this context, we support the constructive Algerian-Turkish partnership, and we are sure that this partnership will be fruitful.
Mr. Saleh Goujil, the Speaker of the Algerian National Assembly, signed a book of condolences on behalf of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, at the Libyan embassy in Algeria, expressing sympathy for the recent devastating hurricane that swept through Derna, eastern Libya city, and its surrounding. In this message of condolences, Goujil reaffirmed Algeria's solidarity with the Libyan people during this difficult time, pledging unwavering support in all circumstances. The same line of thought almost 2 weeks now, and the scale of devastation in the Libyan head city of Derna is still high. Rescue efforts continue to find thousands of people who are lost under the wreckage and those washed away by the sea.
11 days after the catastrophe, and the scene in Derna is still apocalyptic. On the ground, everyone here needs help. Aid efforts are gathering pace as search and rescue efforts continue. But the scale of devastation makes their mission too hard. The floods inundated as much as a quarter of the city, erasing much of Derna. Rescuers are struggling to recover bodies buried under collapsed buildings or floated offshore after deadly floods swept the city.
The large number of collapsed buildings and bodies buried under the buildings have posed difficulty for our work. In addition, there were also people washed offshore. When our divers dived into the sea, they saw a lot of wreckage of buildings and vehicles, as well as the remains of many victims. We are still working on how to recover the dead bodies.
Many of the residents here are traumatized. 30,000 of them are now homeless in Derna alone. Muftah is one of them. He witnessed the very first moments of the devastation.
Water was heavy, and there was a strong flooding on the street. It covered the pavement. Moments later, when we heard the sound of the dam explosion, the water level increased significantly, reaching the first floor and half of the second floor. First floor residents moved to the second floor and then to the third floor until we reached the roof. Since 3:30 a.m., we were sitting on the roof until the level of water decreased. There were material losses, and the human, thank God.
The UN Migration Agency says at least 40,000 people are missing. Countless bodies are washed into the sea in a city sinking in muddy ruin.
In Africa still, the coup-toppled president of Niger has appealed to a court of the Economic Community of the West African states to free him. His lawyer said Mohamed Bazoum filed a lawsuit with the West African Blacks Court based in Abuja, the Nigerian capital, on September 18, said his Senegalese lawyer Sidio Dieng, adding that the lawsuit invokes his arbitrary arrest and violation of freedom of movement. Terrorists in Burkina Faso have killed 16 civilians, including 4 army auxiliaries. Sources said Thursday, adding that around 12 terrorists later died in an army counteroffensive. On the same day, an attack by a terrorist group left 4 dead in Serasso in the west, the security sources also stated, adding that they were all VDP civilian volunteers for the army. Around a dozen terrorists were also killed in a counter-operations by the troubled West African nations army after Tuesday's strikes. The security sources also same source. President of the Democratic Republic of Congo has called for a speedy withdrawal of the UN peacekeeping mission in his country. In an address at the annual United Nations gathering of the world leaders on Wednesday, Félix Antoine expressed disappointment with the effectiveness of the mission in stemming violence in his country. In 2020, the UN announced that a phased withdrawal of its large mission would begin in 2024. The Ethiopian National Defense Force announced the elimination of approximately 462 militias situated with the terrorist Al-Shabaab group during an unsuccessful attack launched by the extremist organization. The Ethiopian military disclosed that the confrontation occurred in Rabatri, southwestern Somalia, as Al-Shabaab militias or rather militants attempt to attack national defense units in the area. The terrorists deployed 12 suicide bombers and 3 explosives-laden vehicles in the failed assault that the Ethiopian army has successfully thwarted multiple attempts by Al-Shabaab to eastern Ethiopia for cross-border attacks. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas stated on Thursday that Middle East peace was not achievable until Palestinians are granted full rights, saying that whoever thinks peace in the Middle East is possible before our people achieve their full right is wrong.
واهم من يظن
Those who think that peace can prevail in the Middle East without the Palestinian people enjoying their full legitimate national rights would be mistaken. In light of the deadlock of the peace process due to occupier policies, we come before you to again appeal. The occupier racist right-wing government continues its attacks on our people, and through its army and its racist terrorist settlers, continues to intimidate and kill our people, destroy homes and properties, steal our money and resources, and obtain the bodies of the martyrs. More than 600 bodies are being kept in occupied territories. Why? I don't know.
Incidents involving the Zionist occupation forces in the occupied West Bank led to dozens of Palestinians sustaining injuries from live bullets and experiencing suffocation. Also, a number of Palestinians were arrested during the raids carried out by the occupation soldiers. Palestinian news agency reported that these events unfolded during the occupation forces operation, particularly in the Jalasum camp located north of Ramallah and eastern region of Nablus. The agency also noted that young Palestinians suffered from suffocation during attacks by the occupation forces in Anbata east of Tulkarm. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad has arrived in China, kicking off his first visit to the Asian nation since 2004. Assad will meet Xi on Friday, a day before the Syrian president attends the opening of the Asian Games. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Mao Niang said that President Xi Jinping and other Chinese leaders will meet with Assad to exchange views on bilateral relations and issues of mutual interest, adding that Assad's visit would push Chinese-Syrian relations to a new level. In Asia, still Iran says it has no problem with the UN nuclear watchdog's inspection of its nuclear sites days after it barred multiple inspectors. The move was a response to a call led by the United States, Britain, France, and Germany. The International Atomic Energy Agency's board of governors earlier this month for Tehran to cooperate immediately with the agency on issues including explaining uranium traces found at the undeclared sites. The cargo ship Resilient Africa arrived off Turkey's Bosphorus Strait, and it's the first vessel loaded with grain from Ukraine to sail in and out of the Black Sea using humanitarian corridor. The ship left the Ukrainian port of Chomorongsk this week with 3,000 metric tons of grain. Azerbaijan has presented its reinforced or rather reintegration plan to Karabakh Armenian representatives, while Armenia says they broke the new ceasefire.
The conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan over the mountainous Nagorno-Karabakh territory, which has lasted more than 3 decades, may soon come to an end. Azerbaijan has presented its reintegration plan to Karabakh Armenian representatives in the presence of the Russian peacekeeping forces 2 days after it launched an offensive against the Armenian majority enclave of Karabakh.
This question was discussed about the reintegration because it was on our agenda, all components of the reintegration, and yesterday in his public speech and nationwide appeal, my president also underlined that political, municipal rights, economic and social and humanitarian rights, and accordingly religious rights of Karabakh Armenians will be provided by the Azerbaijani side.
However, even as the two sides met Thursday, reports emerged that the ceasefire had effectively collapsed.
According to our data, unfortunately today an incident occurred in the vicinity of Stepanakert, but in general the truce remains, although sometimes there are violations.
Perhaps the complexities of the crisis, with its intertwined historical and ethnic backgrounds, make matters worse. Baku acknowledges the difficulty of reaching an agreement during a single meeting, while the Armenian representative reveals that the discussions were not able to reach final agreements. 5,000 is the number of residents who have been evacuated from the dangerous areas in the region by Russian peacekeepers. The enclave that has been a point of permanent conflict is at the center of a humanitarian crisis, in hopes of putting an end to the conflict.
And I have got this note. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, had just landed in Algiers after participating in the proceedings of the 78th session of the UN General Assembly in New York. With this information, we reach the end of our news bulletin. Thank you ever so much for being with us. For more updates, you can follow our social media platform. And all I can say at the end, take care of yourself. Good night.